Hi, I'm Robert,
And I'm Evelyn.
and this is Token About It.
And we are finally talking about the animated Return of the King from 1980.
Yes.
We were originally going to release it with the other two movies that we talked about. However, this isn't available for streaming anywhere, not even to rent or buy. So we had to buy the DVD, and then life, of course, as usual, happened. So we had to find time to watch it, and we did.
And we did. We just finished watching it. Now, also, when we were looking for it to watch,
hmm
and I would do a search asking where it's streaming, it would tell me two or three places. But then when I go to those two or three places, it's not streaming. That
Right.
was to buy.
No, it wasn't even to buy. It wasn't the only one that had it to buy was Amazon, and we clicked to buy, it brought us to the Amazon website to buy the DVD. That's what happened.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, we would put in the search box of the streaming service and nothing would show up. It was weird.
Yeah.
Um so if you want to watch it, apparently the Smithsonian Archives has it available.
But
So that's the other place. But we found out about it like after we already got the DVD in, and we're like, well, let's go ahead and just do it.
right. And also, it might be more available out of the US too. And the reason I mention that is because we do have listeners from the UK.
Yeah, we do have listeners from all over. So hopefully it's easier for you guys to find it. But a little
And
oh,
I don't think it's the Smithsonian Archives. I think it's called the Internet Archives.
of the Internet Archives.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my mom is the one that found it and sent me the link, so I'll make the link available for you guys when we publish this.
Sounds good.
Okay, so a little background on the movie. So, like I said, this was made in 1980. This is commonly thought to be a sequel to the Lord of the Rings animated film that we watched. It is not related to it at all. This is done by Rankin and Bass, who are most known for their holiday stuff.
Yes.
The most famous one you guys might know is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Right.
So that is the company that did it, and they actually did the 1977 animated film The Hobbit, and both of these were done for TV. And so The Hobbit was a good success, and so they actually wanted to do, the working title was originally Frodo the Hobbit Part 2. And so they wanted to focus on Frodo, and they thought the best way to do it was to just adapt The Return of the King. And we'll get more into it, but it definitely shows throughout the movie where it truly, like, I would say at least three-fourths was focused on Frodo and Sam of the
Right.
movie.
Yes.
Um,
And sometimes it was focused on Frodo, and Frodo was given things to do or to say that in the book Samwise does or says.
right. So the cast returns for the Return of the King that was in The Hobbit, with the exception of the late Cyril Richard as the voice of Elrond. And so he was the only one that was replaced voice cast wise. So I think it's cool that they got that. There was an issue, the film was actually finished uh quicker because but not released until 1980, because there was actually a lawsuit by the Tolkien estate and Fantasy Films on the basis that they hadn't secured the US and Canadian television rights to the book. But after all of the legal stuff was taken care of, it was settled amicably. At least that's what the official story is. I hope that is true though. Um, and then a lot of people, again, think that The Lord of the Rings was picked by them because of the other animated Lord of the Rings, but they had decided on Return of the King well before that. Um,
Right.
that was always their vision, was to do The Hobbit and then go into Return of the King. So that's something that we'll talk about a little bit with it within that context. There, um, while the reception at the time was kind of lukewarm. And Rotten Tomatoes, of the 15 critics, it has a 67%. And the director, Arthur Rankin Jr., stated, "There was a lot that we tried to do. There's a lot to put in it. Um, and they're proud of what they were able to pull together." Um,
Okay.
but even he admits that it's definitely he was definitely wasn't sure if it was going to work, and he admits that there's problems that they wish that they could go back on.
Right.
Okay. So that being said, the movie. So let's just start at the beginning, because I know there's stuff that so I should have kept count, but several parts during the movie I would hear Dad go, "I hate it." But I am going to argue that that's actually a step up from the other two movies, because the other two movies you were just speechless because it was just so bad there wasn't a way to form words.
But also, though, what I didn't like is some drastic changes to story.
Right. And
It wasn't even
mhm,
animation, it was just drastic changes to story. For example,
mhm.
we're missing two major characters at the very beginning.
We didn't realize literally until the end. It was at the end when we realized that Legolas and Gimli aren't even mentioned
Yep,
in the book.
correct.
And if you had no idea about the book, like, you would not know who Faramir was. He has no speaking role. They don't mention him. They don't acknowledge him, except Eowyn makes eyes at him at the end.
And they're on the horse together.
Yeah,
I mean, not
the horses.
they are on horses side by side together, looking at each other with googly love eyes.
Right. So that's it. Um so we'll get into it, because I will say a couple of the changes, I kind of see how they wanted to make it easier for, because they did purposely go to Return of the King, so they probably tried to make it easier for the for TV audience to follow if they haven't read the book. But there are several points that I wrote that it's like they easily could have done some sort of explanation. So the first thing that we noticed before even starting the film, we weren't sure that this is the film we were thinking of. The
Yeah, because for some reason we were thinking the animation was different.
well,
But once we got it going,
the animation was the same. It's just the cover, like the art on the DVD cover and the art of the movie poster, to me, looks drastically different than the animation.
yes, it almost looks
It looks like it's photoshopped. Like, that's the only way I can say
well,
it.
no,
Or even like slightly three-dimensional
yeah, that's
versus
what I was going to say.
2D.
It looks like it's trying to do 3 dimension, with the shading and everything. But I guess they decided to abandon that because of cost. I don't know if that's true or not.
Or maybe it was just like the push to try to get it to sell and for advertisement, maybe.
So maybe.
Um, but as soon as the film started, it was instantly familiar for me,
Yes.
because you would put it on a lot in the background while you were working, while my brother and I would play toys and watch. We didn't watch it as many times as The Hobbit, but we definitely watched it a lot. Though I'll get more into it at the end, but now that I've watched this and now that I have read the books and seen the live action movies, I now know why I didn't know things.
Right.
Um,
And what's interesting too is the way they begin it.
I was gonna say I actually liked it.
I liked it because they were pulling stuff together to make it quick.
Hmm.
And what we're talking about is so we basically see them telling Bilbo the story after it's already been done. Is
Right.
how they set it up in the beginning.
Yeah, it's Bilbo's 129th birthday, and he's kind of forgetful, and he notices that Frodo's missing a finger and he needs to know what happened. And then Gandalf goes, well, luckily for us, a minstrel of Gondor is here and has a song about it. And that's kind of the setup.
It wasn't a minstrel, it was the minstrel.
The minstrel of Gondor, yes.
And
But I will say, when I first was seeing, because we watched it before I got the context that it was a direct follow-up to The Hobbit. When I first saw it, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But now that I know it's a direct follow-up to The Hobbit, I think they did really, really well. Because people would have known that at that time when it first premiered.
also, I remember the song being much more irritating than it was.
Maybe because Alex and I sang it all the time. And still do.
But I mean, it's that
It's that
TV movie bard voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With the quiver in it and everything.
Yeah.
And
Well, the 9 fingers. Yeah.
Not
But-
quite
but-
that
but
bad.
it was- Watching it as an adult for the first time, I couldn't help but giggle to myself a little bit because I've seen so many different media and parodies, especially like South Park and Simpsons, that like make fun of this type of trope. And then like watching it, it's like, yeah, this is from the late 70s, early 80s. Like, this is where the trope came from.
Right.
So it's so in a way it's almost a full circle where now that I have read The Lord of the Rings in its entirety, I can see that where like those literary tropes come from finally, like where they started. And then I think it's just interesting that with these movies, those tropes in film and storytelling, in audio visual is made as well. So I think it's just interesting that it does that. And it was just almost comforting hearing the narrator again. I just truly my childhood.
So Gondorf / narrator is John Huston of movie making fame.
Yes. I'm just gonna leave the long pause, and that's what I'll know. So it truly starts at the beginning, or at least the beginning for Sam and Frodo, where they have just exited the spider cave and Frodo is captured.
Well, actually, I mean, it starts right after that because it's Sam all by himself.
That's what I meant, yeah.
Right.
And we get something that we don't get in the other films, which I thought was interesting.
What was that?
Sam gets tempted by the ring.
Sam gets tempted by... No, but see, Sam does get tempted by the ring. They just showed it differently.
Getting tempted in the live action.
Not in the live action.
That's what I meant.
Okay, in the...
Sorry. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But they did do it differently in this movie.
But yeah, he wants to...
A little bit more dramatic.
He wants to be Sam the Strongheart.
And command armies. But then he does go to wanting to command those armies to make the greatest garden of all time.
Right.
Which...
But still didn't like it.
At least it was closer to the point.
Yeah, I still didn't like it.
But obviously he's able to use his hobbit sense to suck it out of to just knock him out of it. And that's what we see. I'm gonna let Dad go on his rant now.
About?
This is when we see the Nazguls and their flying steeds for the first time.
So...
You may begin the rant.
So...
He hates this part, guys.
The flying steeds are exactly that. When they are flying, they have them looking like a black Pegasus.
Mm-hmm.
And not just... And not like a nightmare Pegasus either. I mean...
It's a nice looking horse with wings.
Yes, it's a good looking horse.
It's a Pegasus with wings.
Yeah, but you would think that at least they would have gave it red eyes and made it look a little bit more like
scarier.
Yeah.
Like sharper edges like they do to denote evil.
Or nightmare or something like that. And then all of a sudden they decide that when it lands, it looks like a pterodactyl. Evelyn is saying it's because it was for
the Witch
King.
No, because when you see the Witch King, so when you see the Witch King earlier in the film, he is flying that same horse. However, in the scene where he's at the Pelennor Field, in the air, he has the pterodactyl creature as well.
Right, yeah, because that would be dumb to translate from
Right.
forest to that.
But we will get there
somewhere,
because that was not the most egregious part of that whole thing.
correct,
We will get
correction,
there.
correction, correct.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have more on that rant? Because you were going off.
Yeah,
We actually had to start re-recording because he started going off too early on it because he just hated it so much.
it's just. I don't. I can't find words for how upset I am that they took an easy way out. They didn't take an easy way out anywhere else to this level.
Right.
I mean, when they
They
took the other,
simplified other things, but this was the most egregious.
yes,
And we'll talk about those when we get there.
right, but it was just I don't. It was awful, and not only that, it's the writers. The
Mm-hmm.
writers are skeletons.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, with the exception of the Witch King, which we'll talk about later, because
yeah,
I actually liked the Witch King design.
yeah, I like
sort
how
of.
they did the Witch King.
But yeah, the other Nazgul we see first, and they're just exaggerated skeletons with red eyes
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like
And again, I understand that they're doing it for TV and they know children are going to be watching.
Mhm.
But and if they wanted to make it less scary, they should have just kept their hoods on and gave them red eyes.
Right, exactly. Which they did for the Witch King for the most part.
Yes.
So it was at this point is like when I realized is when we found out that it was made for TV and or at least you let me know it was made for TV. And so that's when I'm like, well, they probably changed stuff, but yeah, some stuff was more egregious. However, it was also at this point where we agreed that we loved the character designs
Yes.
because that's something that I think animation doesn't do very well anymore is the characters all truly looked different and even the background characters like the men had slight differences, not the exact same copy paste, and the orcs especially and the trolls all had like slightly different features.
Right.
Like obviously there was like multiples of the same one, but
At least
5 or 6 different designs going around versus just
right.
one cut and paste.
Like when you see them marching, it's not 100 of the exact same in the exact same step.
Right.
Where it's like, it's almost like a magic mirror image or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so the animation, and that's exactly what this company does best is animation. They truly the character designs were very, very well done in my opinion. Though Gandalf, he was very pessimistic, I felt, throughout the film. Like at the very beginning, Gandalf is like literally without hope. And I feel like he's the one that talks about hope all the time in the book. But in the movie, like at the very beginning, he's like, I have no hope. The only possible is if Frodo is alive, which I doubt.
The other thing about Gandalf, as I said earlier, I really liked the way they drew his beard.
Yeah, his design was on point.
And his the whole character design is really done
it's
well.
really well.
But character wise, he's not. So at this point in the books,
Mm-hmm.
he is Gandalf the White.
Yes, and he's drawn as Gandalf the White.
But he's got the Gandalf the Gray attitudes and that little bit of pessimism.
But even Gandalf the Grey pessimism isn't that bad.
Right.
Like it just I didn't really like it.
Yep.
Because Gandalf's the one that's just like, we must keep hope.
And I hated Elrond.
I don't think he talks a single point in the film, but you just hated his design.
I hated his design. He has a couple of lines where basically he's agreeing with Gandalf, but they got him tall and thin. He's almost has a horse face that it's so long, but not quite. And then he's got these magical jewels that are orbiting around his head. as his crown.
It's designed for the Hobbit, so I think we should reevaluate that when we eventually watch The Hobbit.
But it doesn't matter if it was designed for the Hobbit. It shouldn't have been designed. They should have realized how screwed up it looked and not do it in the next one, like they do every other sequel.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Speaking of magically having something, Sam with the vial was next. Sam with the sun, the vial of sunshine when he's trying to get into rescue Starlight, trying to rescue Frodo. He just magically has it.
It's like, I wish I had something to help. Oh, what's this?
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's doing something. And I'm gonna jump ahead slightly because he shows Frodo he shows Frodo it, and Frodo is like, "Whoa, I can't tell you what it is because then the magic won't work." Okay, like that's the explanation. They could have easily just said, "Oh, that was a gift from Galadriel earlier in the adventure." Like it could have been just an easy throwaway line.
Right.
I felt that was
I can't tell you the magic wouldn't work.
right. That one just felt that was a real big cop out to me. That was to me was just as bad as the horse cop out, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's like, oh, what's here? I mean, at least he found it. Well, so when we first see him put his hand in the pocket, says, "Oh, what is this?"
Oh no, he's like, "Ow, something pinched me," and then he puts his hand in the pocket.
What is this? It's like, and he pulls that, goes, "Huh? What is that? I don't know what this is."
Right.
And it's like,
again, we find out later that it was Frodo's cloak, but still, he would have known.
He was there when he got it.
Right. Exactly. But anyway, so
and he saw Frodo use it with the spider.
Right. But anyway, while Sam is rescuing Frodo, the ring makes him like glow and look scary even without him on it. Like him just clutching the ring, he gets this scary glow, and the orc like that is confronting him literally just runs away. And I guess that for the context of this movie, it makes sense that they would need to show something because we haven't had the long, slow buildup of what the ring is. So we needed to like really see it, even if it was, again, not right.
Yes, and when we get to the whole idea of Return of the King, there's very little bit about the king.
Yeah, he's not he's like mentioned at the very beginning as like something that needs to happen, and it's way later that he shows up, which I have written down. But it was at this point that I turned to you and said, "It's too many songs."
There were too many songs, but not because there was too many songs. There was too many songs sung to the same stinking tune.
That is true. Most of them were sung to the same tune. And it was all like really slow, sad ballad type stuff.
With the with the minstrel of Rivendell and the ring of doom.
But yeah, it was so again, like I said before, the movie was pretty much just Sam and Frodo's travel from being rescued to Mount Doom. And at this point, I kind of had I realized that it's like I preferred the live action to this one because I felt that the animation, while it got a little bit better animation wise, the voice acting for me didn't really convey how exhausted and tired they were and hurt. And this is what you were bringing up earlier. So Sam was really really getting that hero the hero edit, but then it kind of switches now that we have Frodo, and so Frodo takes that hopeful, let's keep moving spirit that Sam has, and a lot of the stuff that Sam says and does, this is when Frodo kind of does it. Though we do have Sam supporting Frodo as well, getting them up there. But we do have the incident where they're in their goblin mail and they get enlisted with the Goblin Army, and this was the song that was the bop. This like this song was fun. Like it was a fun, like, upbeat kind of song, and it reminded me of the one from The Hobbit with the orcs as well.
Yeah, but
And
yeah, it's an
it's like
upbeat song.
they got fun songs. The hero songs are all depressing. I mean, this one's kind of depressing too, but at least it's upbeat.
Yeah, and that's what they're marching to while they're singing this song.
Yeah, they're marching like while singing this song, and it's kind of a fun. Like I mean it's upbeat and fun to keep you marching and keep you going. It's kind of like one of those like army marches songs. Like it was fun. I liked it. It was fun. And that's what we were talking about earlier, where it's like I really appreciated the goblins. Like there were truly multiple different designs for them. So it wasn't the same
Right.
thing over and over. And that must have been very difficult to do animation wise. I completely like want to make like acknowledge that. That's the word I was looking for. I want to acknowledge that the animation must have been very difficult because they chose to do it that way, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And there's one little scene that it's interesting too. There's this one little scene that almost feels like it goes over the top and it's no longer children friendly.
Is that the what I was going to bring up, the Sam provoking the fight?
Yeah, Sam
Yeah.
provoking the fight, and then the orc falling through the hatch and down and down and down and down. He
Oh, yeah.
falls so far down we don't hear
Here.
the hit or the splat.
Yeah, that's
But you see the horror in Sam's face watching the fall.
yes. That's when he was doing the rescuing.
Right.
But yeah, this is something that where they're trying to figure out how to get out of this company of orcs and goblins, and Frodo just cannot keep up, and Sam is trying to find an opening for them, and they come to a crossroads with an army of men that's also marching for Sauron, and he basically provokes a fight. Like he eggs on the goblin leader guy,
You're gonna let these these humans
this disgusting menfolk.
tell you what to do?
Right. And so and so while they're all fighting each other, that's when they're able to escape. And again, Sam really gets that hero edit.
Yep.
And apparently I didn't take all my like for some reason why aren't all of my notes? Oh, I accidentally started a new note. Okay. Anyway, so Sam does have a heroic moment, but then it kind of goes back to reading on Frodo. And then you said something that I wrote down because I thought it was interesting is Sam is now having power taken from him. Did you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Right, yeah, so in the book, at this point, Sam is it.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for Sam to take care of Frodo, even carry him,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's the whole thing. Well, if I can't carry the ring, I can carry you.
Right.
And Sam is just taking on that burden, knowing that this is something that has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But all of that type of getting your second win, um, come on, Mr. Frodo, we got to keep moving, keep up hope, da da da. It's all transferred to Frodo. Frodo telling Sam at this point, keep your chin up, let's go. We're
Yeah.
almost there.
Exactly. Yeah. But Gollum shows up.
But also when Gollum, also though when Gollum shows up,
Mm-hmm.
they take away Sam's power too.
True. They have Frodo confront him.
Right. And in the book and the live action movie,
Mm-hmm.
Sam goes after Gollum with a sword.
Yeah.
And it's Frodo that keeps him from striking him.
Right.
But here it's
I mean, it's a little bit of both, where Frodo tells him to be gone or you will meet your doom, which interesting. And then we have after Frodo leaves, though, Sam's like, now I can take care of you. But
Frodo didn't leave.
the Frodo keeps going
I know.
towards the
You just said
volcano.
you just said after Frodo leaves instead.
Yeah, he leaves to keep going to the volcano.
Oh,
He
I thought
leaves the two of
I
them.
thought you were confusing him with Ullum.
No, I meant that he leaves to continue up to the volcano and then Sam is able to confront Gollum, but then he takes pity on him. But when Gollum showed up, this is the Gollum that I grew up with. This is the Gollum that I watched as a kid. And something that I randomly realized while watching it is he kind of looks a little bit like Ducky from Land Before Time.
A little bit.
Little bit.
The
like
colors are the same.
the color in the face a little bit. Like the way the nose is.
And I'm trying to remember where it was. One for like 2 seconds in the background, we see lightning or some type of lighting.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I call Disney Evil Green.
Yes, you even said that.
Yeah. And I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's been around for so long.
I know, but
and it's been. I need to ask. I have some friends that really know Disney. I need to ask if Disney originated that or if they just ran with it. I'm curious now.
Right.
But this is when you mentioned that's like, so when Gollum shows up, he literally just throws a giant boulder at the two.
Right.
And you mentioned that's like you just didn't like the added drama. I mean, it was obviously drama to add because there was the commercial break coming up and to introduce this character, but you felt it was unnecessary.
Well, not only is it unnecessary, where did he get that type of strength?
Fair.
Where?
Well, he is very strong. We do know that.
Where did he get
but not that strong.
Yeah, and where did he get the gumption to want to attack Frodo? Because that doesn't happen until, spoiler alert, towards the very end.
Right.
In the book.
Yeah. We finally have some cutaway scenes to the battlefield now. So it was shown that Merry is the one that delivers the red-tipped arrow to the Rohan to bring in reinforcements, which I guess made a little bit of sense to try to show why he was with them. But then they're all fighting, and Merry and Pippin meet on the battlefield, and reconnect. But that's when the true crime happened. We have the Witch King on the pterodactyl thing show up. And the Witch King design, we didn't mention that. So the Witch King is finally on like the horse first.
No,
and
he's
he
not
takes
on the
off.
horse.
Yeah, he's on the flying horse, remember? And he lands in front of Gandalf.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so when he first shows up, he's on the horse and he lands in front of Gandalf, like when they're opening the gates to Gondor, and he takes off his hood to reveal he's literally just like a flaming head with like glowing eyes and the crown like floating on the flames. And honestly, I kind of dug it.
I like how they did that.
Yeah, for the visual for this. I mean, obviously it's not right, but I liked it.
Yes.
I really, really liked it until later. But anyway, so he finally shows up on a pterodactyl in front of the Rohan. But before he shows up, there is a great darkness. Like, because basically the Rohan have basically won at this point. They're winning. And all of a sudden, they're gathered around, and we have Theoden, and his horse starts freaking out, and it starts getting dark, and he's just like, "Don't let the darkness scare you." And the horse just gets weirder and weirder, and then just throws him off, and then he just dies from being thrown from the horse.
Yes.
Like, what? Like, seriously, they could have easily done an anime. Why?
Right.
They completely trivialize him. Is that the way to say it? Okay. It made
How did he die? Did he die in battle? No, he fell off his stupid horse.
His horse bucked him in fear in battle, but still, it's not cool. Like, it's stupid.
Well, not only that, these are the Rohan.
Exactly.
They are the masters of horses.
And their horses are famed for keeping their heads in battle. And it's like, even if a horse were to get a little scared because this is like more supernatural battle,
why is he the only one?
Right. Why are all the other horses like normal? Yeah, all the other horses are just standing around, just watching. And everyone's just watching this happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did not make any sense, and I hated it because I really like Theoden as a character,
Hmm.
and I really didn't like it. And then after, and they rush to him, and they're like, he's gone, and Mary vows revenge. And that's when the Witch King finally shows up on the pterodactyl that we keep talking about, and then we have the weird Eowyn reveal. He does the whole no man can kill me thing, and she's like, well, I'm a woman, prepare for battle. And she gives a kind of a speechy kind of thing, and the pterodactyl attacks her, and she, I guess slits its throat, but it's a big flash of light and you don't see any blood. I guess they couldn't show any blood because there's something later that they don't show blood,
Yeah.
and they probably weren't allowed to,
Right.
since it was prime time in BC. But she kills him, and so the guy gets off and goes to attack her and breaks her shield, but Mary's able to stab him in the back, and so she's able to cut his head off, to which you said,
look, it's the headless horseman.
I cracked up. It was a great dad joke. I will give you props for that one, because truly, he's literally just a head of flames with some.
No, he's not even head of flames. It's just flaming eyes.
It's just flame.
It's only flaming eyes.
No, it's fire. It's fire. It's literally just fire. It's not even the shape of the head. It's just fire with red glowing things for eyes, and then a floating crown on top. And she chops its non-existent head off.
Right.
And that's how he dies.
Right, because you see
the flames dissipate and the crown
falls, but it doesn't fall as if it's not being supported by anything, which it should have. That's how it should have fell. It fell as if it was still on top of a head.
Yeah.
Even the eyes
fell with it. Yeah, it was.
Yep, it was just.
I mean, if you're gonna change the character design like that, why make that choice for his end? It was a choice. I wonder if that's one of the choices they regret. But as this happens, the Black Fleet arrives, and that's when Aragorn finally shows up.
Yep.
And that's when I realized that we haven't seen anything of Faramir.
Right.
We don't even realize Legolas and Gimli yet. It's not until later we don't realize them. Our first thought was Faramir. What does it say about us that was our first thought?
Well,
where's Faramir?
Yeah.
Well, because I guess we were only seeing Minas Tirith. Was that Minas Tirith?
So, yeah. Right, and it's...
So it's it would make sense that because it's we saw the king, and we saw him with flames over him at one point, but he's never mentioned again either.
Right. And it's just so weird, the way they did the whole Black Fleet thing even.
Yeah, it was just weird, and then they
and Gandalf knew it was coming because he looked into the
into the Palantir.
Into the Palantir, which they call a magic crystal ball, which we can look into the future with.
Yeah. Which showed the Black Fleet coming. And so after Eowyn kills the Witch King, and the evil army flees, but then it sees the Black Fleet, and they're reinforcements, so they start fighting again, but then the Black Fleet helps defeat them. It doesn't make any sense. And they get together and they decide to march on Mordor, but for no real reason. It doesn't mention helping Frodo at all. And Gandalf doesn't want them to do it. He's like, we shouldn't do it. No matter which way you go, it's a death trap, and we don't know if Frodo has succeeded or not. And just so pessimistic.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. But
it's they only in this version, it's they only go because there's enough of them to be pissed off about what's going on and want to go do something.
Right.
No, there's
They're like,
no
maybe we can defeat Sauron because we're pissed off at him,
yeah,
kind of thing.
there's no practical reason mentioned at all.
Yeah.
Um,
The
also,
only tactics they're like is like this place is going to be really badly trapped, and this place is going to be slightly less trapped. Like,
right, and then there's a whole thing about. I mean,
and they're not even trying to go like they're trying to go to like Sauron's like tower, like straight up.
right, and so there's no talk about. Yeah, there's talk about like, well, we shouldn't go here because that looks like a good place for a trap. None of that crap is in the book. The
Mm-hmm.
reason they're going is to take attention away
Away
from
from
possibly away from Frodo and the ring.
right
And
because
then
they have hope.
right, and they really and when they get there, they're shown Frodo's
Stuff.
mithril. No, just the mithril.
No, there was the mithril and I think Sting
No, no,
or a cloak. It was
no,
mithril and something else. There
no,
was two things.
no, just mithril.
Just mithril. I thought there was like a cloak or something.
Because he's got everything else. Because Sam's got everything else. It was left there.
I thought it was one of the cloaks.
Might be the cloak, but that's not how I
Okay.
remember it.
Okay, I thought there was more than one thing, but yes, definitely the mithril armor. But the mouth of Sauron comes out, and he's ugly. Like he's not even like fun ugly. He's just like weird,
I am the mouth of Sauron.
and he just
Well,
straight
it'd
up
be nice if you friggin' talked right if you were the mouth of Sauron.
he just straight up threatened them. And then he's like, okay, prepare for attack. And then, like, there's another song about how you should retreat or die kind of thing. And then it's a flashback to the mountain where Frodo has, like, Sam gets into the volcano after Gollum, and Frodo has decided to keep the ring. And then we see that Sam has been searching for Frodo for days in the volcano. They say days.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would Frodo still be around in there? Like that made no sense to me. Like, it makes like in the book it's very subtle, but you're able to pick up that things are happening simultaneously. I feel like it could have, instead of saying that Sam had, like, unbeknownst to Gandalf, Sam had been searching for days, it could have said unbeknownst to Gandalf at the same time this was happening. Like it was a very easy fix, in my opinion. Like something they could very easily have said. So like searching for days, just, I don't know, I didn't like it. So,
and we don't get the spider.
Technically,
I mean, we don't get the spider. We get because how it starts is basically Frodo's been taken.
yeah.
Frodo's already been taken, and Samwise finds a way past the wall by going through this crack in the wall, which is a crack in the wall. It's obviously an opening with a stone shoved in it, but because the hobbit is so small, he can squeeze through the crack between the boulder and the entrance hole.
Yeah, so it's a lot. So finally, like,
but the reason I was saying that was because in that little bitty part, we see a little bit of spider webs.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, just a little, just enough to go, just enough for me to go, oh, they're going to show Shelob. Well, I guess they didn't.
Right, exactly. But yeah, they have a flashback to the spider that Bilbo fights in the movie, but they don't talk about Shelob at all. But anyway, so Sam is about to give up, and he sees Gollum fighting with someone that's not there, so it must be Frodo, and we have a really silly fight scene of Gollum fighting invisible Frodo, and finally he bites his finger off.
And you would think if it's animation, they could have made it look like he was holding on to something.
Yeah, he was just kind of like there.
He was just like jumping around.
Yeah, he was just kind of like floating.
Like not how well they. I mean,
the part wasn't greatly animated.
I mean, granted, I didn't expect it to be as well done as the live action where, but still.
Yeah, exactly. But he bites off the finger, and that's the part when I realize it's like, oh, they're probably not allowed to show blood. Because he
Yeah.
just straight up, he doesn't even bite it, he rips it.
Well, what I thought was interesting too in the very beginning when Bilbo goes, "Oh, you're missing a finger."
hmm
It just looks like a finger isn't drawn there. There,
There's like a couple little lines, but yeah,
but I
it
mean,
doesn't look like it's scarred at
because
all.
it's all the way to the back knuckle,
hmm
but which it would have to be, um,
Especially if it was ripped off like
off
it was.
the ring, but it just looks like he was born without that finger.
hmm
Because there's hardly even room for a ring to be. I mean, a ring finger to be
Finger.
there.
Yeah, I would say in the beginning one they kind of do it, but in the end when they're doing the recap, they just show him with just straight up like four fingers.
Yeah,
Like they don't even draw a place that it would be. They just didn't even draw it at the
yeah.
end.
He looks like a Disney character with 4 fingers
Exactly.
or 3 fingers on a thumb.
Yeah. But they're trying to get out of the volcano and they say that's like they wouldn't have done this with anyone else. And then the Eagles
The evils.
I probably did say Eagles. The Eagles come, and so I'm gonna say the bad thing first. So the bad thing is, so the Eagles come and carry them off, but all of the Eagles carry off the entire army back to Gondor. Like you see them carrying like other soldiers.
Also,
and it's
like hundreds of eagles.
Yeah.
And it's only supposed to be 5 remaining eagles.
Right. And 3 of them are the ones that go pick up like Frodo and Sam with Gandalf on the way. But yeah, it's hundreds and hundreds of eagles and it makes no freaking sense. Though the nice thing I will say
this is where the argument
about why
weren't the eagles?
That probably is one of the reasons it started. Because of how many this animation shows.
Right.
I wonder if that contributed to the argument or not.
About why are there so many?
Right.
Why didn't the eagles come earlier?
Yeah, and that might have been my assumption too. Since I watched this so much as a kid. But I will say the eagles sounded more like eagles than eagles usually do in movies. Usually they use hawk sounds as eagle sounds because eagles aren't as terrifying. They scream. They're annoying, but they're not terrifying.
Okay, miss.
Versus hawks sound worse than they look. They're just crazy little buttholes, and I love them. But
and so
that's it.
That's it for the story, and then suddenly we magically go back.
And that's when so they talk about how Aragorn finally enters the city of Gondor as the king, and that's when we notice there's no Legolas or Gimli.
Yeah, that's
when we noticed.
But
but it's we're oh, I guess there's Faramir. Suddenly.
But what's interesting is you think about it, they did this story well enough that we didn't notice they were missing until the end.
Yes, but that's because we didn't even get Aragorn.
No, we got Aragorn in the very beginning.
We got Aragorn in the very beginning saying that it's he has stuff to do. And then we don't see him again until we get a slight flash of him on the Black Fleet, but we don't even see him again until they're at the gate with the mouth of Sauron.
But remember though, this is all based on the song that was created by the minstrel of Frodo and the Nine Fingers.
Okay.
So they're not going to give credit to anyone else.
That's true.
But like Evelyn said though, Faramir suddenly shows up.
And again, you wouldn't know it's Faramir unless you've read the books, and the only reason we were is that Faramir? Because he and Eowyn are making eyes.
Yeah, they're making googly eyes at each other.
And then the story's over.
Right.
We're back in Rivendell, and Bilbo's asleep.
And Arwen didn't take any wounds.
Yeah, Eowyn's fine, by the way.
She didn't take any wounds. Sitting on top of a horse, waving.
You really hated on this movie more than the other two, and I feel like it's undeserved compared to the other two.
Because I expected so much more.
It's so much better.
I remember it being better as part of the problem. Well, because what we haven't seen it since you were 10 years old.
I honestly, so here's the thing. I don't think we've seen it since we moved from Boston, and I had just turned 11. So I would say me being 11, so that's 19 years at the very least that we have not seen this movie. Because I don't think we have watched it since we moved to Maryland.
Right, yeah, 19 years.
Yeah, we moved here 19 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't, so it's like, so truly that would be the most recent we would have seen it.
Right, because we have it on VHS.
Right. Because,
That's
no, if we've seen the, no, that's a lie. I did watch The Hobbit in college a couple times as like a comfort movie. But no, I never watched Lord of the Rings. But,
yep.
but yeah, so it's kind of over, and Bilbo's like asleep, and Frodo's like, well, you can rest as much as you want in the Shire.
I'm just resting my eyes.
And Bilbo's like, actually, I'm going to the Grey Havens. And Frodo's like, oh, I kind of feel burdened by this ring over the years. Can I go too? Sure. And then they leave, and that's the end.
Right, so
And then there's a quick tribute to Taylor Swift because there's a blue sky and seagulls. I had to say it. I'm sorry. I'm not that sorry.
you cut out all my funny stuff, and then you're going to leave your own in.
I cut out one funny thing.
So there is. This is where I also don't like it.
Mhm.
I mean, it ends in a made up place. No, I don't mean it's made up like the whole book is. I
Mhm.
mean, made up, not even any way possible. Can the book be mangled to make it look like this? The reason they're there for Bilbo's birthday is because after the birthday celebration, they're heading to the Grey Havens.
In the movie.
In the movie we just watched.
Yeah.
Yes.
I needed to specify that for the listeners.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
It's totally different from the ending of the book.
but I mean, but they didn't even try. I mean, it's to me, it's lazy.
I think they had to cut for time. I think they really had a time issue. I think that it needed to be. I think it needed to be like within time, and so I'm not that angry about it. They really needed stuff for time.
But it's lazy. It's lazy.
I don't find it as lazy as the Russian version. And the ending of the Russian version was very lazy.
But
I felt like this was more of a time concern.
But they could have taken. They could have taken one of the 5,000 verses of Frodo and the Nine Fingers out of the film, and had at least see them for 5 seconds on a horse on the way and arriving at the boat, the white ships.
Yeah. It really just went from they're talking about it to they're on the ships, and Sam, Merry, and Pippin are just watching them leave.
Yeah.
Like, not even a goodbye to them.
Yeah, we don't see them saying goodbye or anything. You see them waving at each other, which I don't like the way Pippin was drawn. He's the only one I didn't like the way it was done.
They were trying for something different, and it just didn't work.
Right.
Though, I forgot the very obvious ending before they leave for the Grey Havens. When they're talking about the Grey Havens, and Gandalf's like, well, it's the end of the time of elves and it's the beginning of the age of men. And I think it's Sam that goes like, well, what about hobbits? And Frodo says like, what about hobbits? And Gandalf's like, well, look at you, and how much bigger Sam is than you, and how much bigger even Merry and Pippin are, and soon you'll be just like men. And then he looks directly in the camera. They animate him looking in the camera and saying, and maybe when your story is told, men might think, is there a little hobbit in me? And I'm like, that's real cheesy. It's 80s cheesy. Well, 70s cheesy, technically, but I couldn't be mad at it because it's perfect amount of cheesy for the time frame, for the time it came out.
But I appreciate it.
Yeah,
because there's a couple times in letters that Tolkien wrote saying, I feel a little bit like a hobbit, or
Right.
I am a hobbit. He
Yeah,
even says,
it's not explicitly stated in the books, but it's more stated in letters that he wrote after the book explaining that that's what he feels happened is the hobbits and men kind of came together. Hobbits got a little bit taller and everything and integrated with men. But
"Yeah, oh
I
look,"
did like that it was explicitly I do think like honestly like for kind of a kids made for TV movie, it's cute. It's sweet.
but also, oh look, Merry and Pippin are taller. Well, did they get taller?
Thank you for censoring yourself. Yeah. Yeah, they don't mention it at all. Which I'm a little okay with because I mean, I would have loved to see Treebeard. Don't get me wrong, I would have loved to see
How they animated it?
how they animated him versus the other animation. Um with our Kardashian booty boy. But
And
I don't mind that they didn't say it because it's like I feel like they couldn't have easily summed it up quickly, you know?
right, instead of one of the flippin' verses of Frodo and the Nine Fingers.
They did repeat it a lot. That and the really sad one where it's like you don't have to say goodbye if you don't say hello.
Yeah,
Like
you
they
never
repeat that
have to say goodbye if you don't say hello.
and
What the heck?
yeah, they say that that's the really depressing one that they sing like all the time. And they sing it during like the times of like when it's really hard, but they also sing it at the happy times too.
Yeah,
It's like what is happening here? Like that's like the ending of the movie is when they're waving goodbye and when they're on their way to the Grey
you
Havens.
don't have to say
Like
goodbye if you never say hello.
that's literally the lyric that they sing as we see Mary, Pippin, and Sam like leaving on their horses, and it's like that's not what it was just like I it was whew.
Yeah, I mean, for the movies that we've seen, except the most recent
Two.
no, except for the recent live animation movies.
What?
If we count all the movies except for those three.
What's a live animation?
Did I say live animation?
You
Live action is what I meant. Uh, the three live action movies of Peter Jackson. Not counting those, this was the best of them that we've seen.
this is the best adaptation of the other ones that we've talked about.
I'm still angry that the Russians were able to put in Tom Bombadil and nobody else was able to figure out how to put him in there.
Oh,
Even though they put him in there as a giant,
they
he was still there.
Yeah, yeah. It was definitely much better than the other two.
Yes.
Because the Lord of the Rings animated, we were just straight up offended by their portrayal of Sam. Like everything else was
I
like
thought they were going to do it with this one the way they had him drawn.
yeah, they had him drawn very similarly as they did with the other one,
Yeah,
but they did him much better.
they-
Sam was much
yeah,
better in this one.
they
Still not the total hero, but definitely had his heroic moments,
right.
which I
Yeah,
appreciated.
when you first see him drawn, you look at him and goes, "Oh, they're making sure that we understand that he's a humble, I don't want to go nowhere farmer."
Right. Yes.
So,
They still definitely do the stereotype with the look.
and the size of the nose that they put on him.
I mean, I feel like all the hobbits had bigger noses.
No,
In this one.
bigger noses, but not bigger than his.
Yeah, his was the biggest nose.
His is almost his nose is as big as Frodo's head in some scenes.
That is true. That is very true. But
Anyway,
but yeah, it was definitely, I mean, now that I've read the books, the movie definitely has like is different to me where I mean, I still like it. It's still definitely a big part of my childhood.
it was entertaining.
It was entertaining, and for what it is, it makes sense. I feel like it was really made for people that might not have read Lord of the Rings, or for the kids of people who had read it.
But what's interesting too, this is something I noticed after we finished watching it. I was sitting up paying attention to the whole movie until about the time where Gollum shows up. And,
That's when you were like, ugh.
well, and we're, yeah, and there's probably only 15 minutes of actual film
Okay.
left
Yeah.
at that point. And it's just like, they just,
They changed a lot.
they changed the pace
Mm-hmm.
where, I mean, this is the finale. And let's put Robert to sleep. It just was,
Yeah.
it just didn't seem coherent
Yeah.
with the rest.
That's why I wonder if they were like really rushed for time with the ending.
But you don't make those linear. You have different crews working on different parts. It's not.
No, I don't mean working on the different like time finishing it. I mean time for how long the movie was supposed to be is what I mean.
Yes, and we could have saved 5 seconds here, not seeing the Nazgul on black unicorns. We could have saved the 10 seconds there for something else, and
Yeah.
there was just there was stuff put in that could have easily been not there. It would not have changed the story one bit unless it changed it for the better.
Mm-hmm. But for me, I don't know. Like looking back on it, I don't remember having questions about this movie. I feel like as a kid, like I perfectly understood what was happening for the movie at least. I felt
Right.
for the movie, it's a continuous plot. It it doesn't have those extra questions. It doesn't really miss much. For me, as a kid, I felt like I got it. I mean, now that it was like at least 3/4 Frodo and Sam, now I know why I don't remember. Or, like because I didn't know anything. I don't remember anything because I didn't know anything about the last book really. But yeah, I think for what it is, it's good.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, overall, I like it. It's it's interesting to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to see how how they're going to interpret it.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I mean, for as much as I'm piling on it, it was still,
Mm-hmm. I guess it's because you remember it being better. But again, I don't think you paid much attention to it. Because we it was one of those VHSs that we would just put in and watch while you worked.
yeah. So,
And then Alex and I would just randomly go like, Frodo of the Nine Fingers.
and the break of two.
Like just literally randomly. Just any given day. So I think that's all I had on the movie. Did you have anything else?
No, I think that's it. Okay, so what I was looking up, you had said what you had said what Rotten Tomatoes said, right?
Yes.
Okay, so on so IMDb has it rated as a 5.7 out of 10.
Okay.
Um, so and that's with 4,473 votes. So
But again, is that more like modern audiences watching it? Because when I'm watching, with all three films that we watched, I was trying to watch it through the lens of context, I guess. Where I wanted to, so I knew that with the Lord of the Rings animated, that it came out in the 70s and it was kind of newer animation techniques being experimented with. And then with the Russian one, I knew that it was a Soviet made live action low budget film. I didn't realize how low budget until later, but like I knew it was like right before the fall of the Soviet Union. And then with this one, again, I knew that it was made for TV and that it was made in the late 70s. So I kind of was thinking from that type of thing, because I can't help but to wonder if the people on like IMDb or like the Rotten Tomatoes scores, it's people that are watching it from the modern lens, and especially this one that we were talking about earlier, where this is where some of those tropes come from, that they just see it as another trope, not the actual, like, when it first came out, it was the start of it. And I don't know what I'm saying, but it's like they're the ones that created it, and it was new for its time and revolutionary versus the modern audience.
Right. But I can't help but think about the fact that so Gandalf is voiced by John Huston,
Hmm.
the famous director.
Right.
I mean, he did acting too,
Right.
but I mean, so his first real movie was The Maltese Falcon. Going from something like that to voicing this almost makes me wonder if he did it for his grandkids.
I mean,
I mean, he did so many movies with Humphrey Bogart, and now he's doing it.
or maybe he was a fan of the Lord of the Rings. You never know.
I mean, The African Queen, Beat the Devil, Moby Dick, Farewell to Arms, The Roots of Heaven. I mean, The Unforgiven. I mean, these are classic movies that should be on everybody's watch list. I would not put this on anybody's have to watch list.
I might disagree.
I mean, not. I mean, at this point, I don't think I would recommend this movie to anybody who wants to.
Yeah, you would have to really know Lord of the Rings to really, either you would have to know nothing about Lord of the Rings to really enjoy it, or you would have to know everything about it to enjoy it.
Right.
I don't think there could be an in between.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I would agree.
So, especially when you have, I mean, granted, Peter Jackson's movies have problems too,
Hmm.
but you can tell it's made by a fan and not a company trying to spit out one more made for TV animation movie.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Well, again, I think that this was along the lines of The Hobbit was their baby. It was their precious. And they were asked to do a second one. And they probably just really struggled doing that. So, all right. Well, that's it for this one, I think. I've been Evelyn.
and I've been Robert.
And we're talking about it.